Hello, and good evening. My name is Jade Clancy, and this week marks the 1-year anniversary of the oil spill blowout in the Gulf of Mexico. On April 20th, 2010, BP's drilling rig, the Deepwater Horizon, blew a massive leak. The explosion and fire resulted in 11 deaths. 2 days later, the platform sank. After several failed attempts by BP, the rig was capped on July 15th. The well spewed 4.9 million barrels of crude oil, worth $397.7 million. The cleanup, which is still going on today, is costing BP $40 billion. Here are some clips from different news sources covering the story.
Hello, I am Margaret Wendt, and I am a journalist with the Globe and Mail. This week marks the anniversary of the oil spill disaster in the Gulf of Mexico. Scientists are surprised at how well the Gulf is recovering from such a massive spill. However, many sources this week failed to mention the Gulf and its healthier condition. Despite the good news, the coverage of the blowout's anniversary last week was almost unbelievably grim. Not one story I read bothered to chronicle the Gulf's astonishing recovery. It's worth asking why we're so determined to cling on to the narrative of catastrophe. I think it's because we saw the spill as a giant morality tale. Evil versus good, rapacious oil interests versus the environment. Greedy consumers, which is us, versus oil-soaked pelicans in the unspoiled natural world. The visuals were devastating, and the coverage was relentless. The media took turns hyping the disaster. They had a lot invested in this storyline, and when it took an unexpected happy turn, they couldn't handle it. They couldn't even see it. Luckily for us, they were wrong. Nature's resilience is truly magnificent, a renowned marine ecologist, Carl Spina, writes, and that's a good thing.
The BP oil company chose the fastest way of drilling the well. Even though it was perfectly legal, they cut corners that could have helped prevent the rig from leaking. The leak ended up costing BP more money and time than it would have cost if they had implemented the systems and tests in the first place. BP failed to circulate heavy drilling mud outside the casing before cementing, a practice that helps ensure that the cement cure properly. BP also did not install enough centralizers, devices that ensure that the cement has formed a complete seal around the casing. They also failed to run a test to see if the cement had bonded properly. These processes were all overlooked and only had to do with the cementing process. Many other oversights occurred as BP prepared to finish and disconnect the rig from the well. Many oil drilling experts said they were surprised with the way BP handled the process. The decisions BP made when they had indications that the well was not stable, the decision to have a one-long pipe, the decision to have only 6 centralizers instead of 21 to create the best possible cement job. Some of these things were very surprising to us here, said Åge Dyrnell, Director General of the Petroleum Safety Authority of Norway. In a spill response plan for the whole Gulf, BP claimed that it would recover nearly 500,000 barrels of oil a day while using standard technology. If this were true, even a worst-case spill would end up inflicting minimal harm to the Gulf's fisheries and wildlife. In the spill response plan, BP mentioned walruses, sea otters, and sea lions, all of which cannot be found in the Gulf. The plan also listed as an emergency responder a marine biologist that had been dead for a while, as well as giving the web address of an entertainment site in Japan as an emergency source of spill response equipment. All of these plans have been cut and pasted from older plans prepared for the Arctic. In short, BP's response fell well below its claims. After 12 weeks of leaking oil, BP managed to put a cap on the well. Government scientists estimated that BP removed about a quarter of the oil. Another quarter had evaporated or dissolved into scattered molecules. A third quarter had been dispersed in the water as small droplets, which can be toxic to small organisms. The last quarter remains as slicks or sheens on the water or as tar balls on the beaches. The Louisiana wetlands are one of the areas that have been greatly affected by the spill. Coincidentally, the wetlands are one of the most productive ecosystems in North America. The ecosystems support mullet, brown pelicans, tricolored herons, roseate spoonbills, great egrets, and blue-winged bell ducks. One third of the United States oyster and shrimp crops come out of the waters of the Louisiana coast. 98% of the fish, shrimps, crabs, and oysters harvested along the coast depend on the habitat of the marshes and wetlands south and west of New Orleans. Without the marshes, there is no shrimp fishery or oyster harvest, nor are there reeds and grasses for nesting and migrating birds. Without the resources that the wetlands provide, the economic and cultural stability of the bayou could be lost. Attempts to clean up the oil are being made. Booms are sucking up the oil from the water on the shoreline. Burning the oil has also proved to be very effective. People are even wiping the oil from the grasses blade by blade. Cleaning up the marshes is one thing, but cleaning up the wildlife that lives in the marshes is entirely different. BP has hired dozens of wildlife professionals to collect oiled birds and turtles, and other animals as well. The only problem was that there weren't enough professionals to go around. The oil has drastic effects on all of the animals, and all of those effects can and will lead to death if not treated properly. Birds with oil-soaked feathers do not commonly die from poisoning, rather from hypothermia when the temperature drops at night or when the sun overheats their bodies. Luckily for birds, there are many rehabilitation centers that are available if they are able to be transported there. The effects of the oil spill are still being felt. The birds, as I said before, are still drenched, and the turtles are getting stuck and dying. It is still unknown what the effects of the oil have on larvae, eggs, bacteria, as well as many other forms of life.
Who's in the driver's seat with this cleanup? Because in my opinion, it's being held by the environmentalists. I think the environmentalists have a hidden agenda. They want to kill all the oil business.
I completely agree with you, Willie.
Well, you know, Haley, Obama had said in his 2008 election campaign, why would oil companies need to be concerned about finding clean sources of energy when they can make money as is?
Do you really think his heart is in all that?
No, but is it really in anything?
Yeah, his heart is in taking over the banks and the financial institutions.
You know, they say there is so much oil, but there's only little chunks of it. You're barely seeing anything on the shore.
Well, they do say, though, that most of the oil is just on the bottom of the ocean floor.
Well, yeah, that's probably true. But the major source of oil seeping into the ocean is from natural gas seepage from subterranean deposits.
But the ocean absorbs a lot, and I don't even see any of it anyway.
And we all know that Mother Nature spills more oil than BP and Halliburton.